Brooding Djokovic versus the rest. I'll begin with an interesting anecdote for you. When I say brooding Djokovic versus the rest, who are the rest? The rest basically are two other greats, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. Now, even Roger Federer hit a ball boy once at the Australian Open. The commentators laughed off the incident, including the ball boy. In fact, the commentators said the ball boy was lucky to be hit by a tennis ball from Roger Federer himself, as if it was a touch of genius. You're being blessed. Nobody was laughing when the ball struck by Djokovic hit a lineswoman at the US Open. We all know what happened after that. She sort of crumpled in pain. He apologized. This went on for some time, and ultimately Djokovic was disqualified from the US Open. A huge hit for the US Open. Obviously, a big hit for Djoko too, because this was something which was like a bolt out of the blue. Interestingly, both offences were identical, the Roger Federer offence as well as the Novak Djokovic offence. Nothing happened to Roger Federer. Djokovic was sent out of a major Grand Slam tournament. It's the setting up of a story. The class of Federer versus the rough and tough Serbian who grew up with NATO bombs falling over Serbia. That's his background. Yet Djokovic has pocketed $144 million in prize money, a huge amount. And slowly but surely, he will reach Federer's 20 major Grand Slam titles. So the stack up is like this. You have Roger Federer at the top with 20 titles. Then you have Rafael Nadal with 19 and Djoko is at their heels with 17. Would he be able to better Roger Federer? Quite sure he will be able to do that. The upstart wants the crown, and Federer fans don't like it. Thus, the narrative of the hero versus the villain. When Wimbledon was noisily willing on Federer in last year's Wimbledon final, if you remember, Djokovic himself said that the crowd started chanting Roger Federer's name, Roger, Roger. But Djokovic won that match and the title. And after winning, he said, when they chanted Roger, Roger, I willed myself into believing they were chanting Novak, Novak, which showed the brutal determination of a man who's clawed his way to the top, who never knows how to give up. Knowing Novak, he'll be back with a roar. I'll take you now towards the rules and violations which govern tennis at the highest level so that we can understand what really happened at the US Open and what has happened before. Yes, this is a question I've seen running on WhatsApp groups. I hate personally WhatsApp groups, can't take it, but I'm trapped in at least two of them. And I saw this morning that there were quite a few questions being raised that could this be just a one-off thing? Has this ever happened before? Research says it has happened 5 times. Yes, 5 times this has happened where in a major tennis tournament, a player has been disqualified. I'll take you through all those 5 titles. Of course, the 5th one is the one with Djoko, so there are 4 others. What do the rules say? A tennis player can get disqualified if he or she receives 3 code violations or a direct disqualification if they physically abuse someone. These violations can be for verbal abuse, racket abuse, unsportsmanlike conduct, and so on. ATP rules state that players shall not at any time physically abuse any official, opponent, spectator, or other person within the precincts of the tournament site. For purposes of this rule, physical abuse is the unauthorized touching of an official, opponent, and spectator or any other person. Yes, there haven't been too many instances, but there are 4 other instances besides the Djoko incident. So I'll take you through the other 4 incidents. 2017 Davis Cup World Group, young rising star Denis Shapovalov was disqualified during Canada's Davis Cup encounter against Great Britain. This happened in 2017. Just 17 years old back then, Denis tossed the ball away in anger after getting broken in the 3rd set by Kyle Edmund. The ball travelling at around 80 miles per hour hit the umpire under the eye. So he got a black eye. The young Canadian realized what he had done, immediately went to apologize. However, he was disqualified from the encounter before the umpire went on to receive medical treatment. The Davis Cup tie was all square 2 each, but Shapovalov's outburst gave the match to Great Britain. The next one, 2012, London Queen's Club. While facing Marin Cilic in the final of the Queen's Club tournament, David Nalbandian lost his cool after getting broken in the second set. As soon as he got broken, he went and kicked an advertising board on the sidelines, which ended up hurting the linesman quite badly. He suffered a gash on the leg. Despite being a setup, Nalbandian was then disqualified from the match, thus handling Cilic the title. 1995, Wimbledon, a doubles match. A few years before challenging the top tennis stars at Wimbledon, Tim Henman suffered a setback in 95 during the doubles match. Playing alongside Jeremy Bates, they were up 2-1 against Jeff Tarango and Henrik Holm. During the fourth set tiebreak, after missing a net cord, Henman lashed out at a ball in anger, which ended up hitting a ball girl on the head. After a consultation with the match referee, Tim Henman and Bates were defaulted from the match. Now, 1990, the Australian Open, and possibly the most famous of them all. We can debate whether Djokovic's disqualification would rank in the same category, but this led to the disqualification of the great John McEnroe. John was disqualified from the match at the Australian Open after he received 3 code violations. In the fourth round of the Australian Open in 1990, he was up against Michael Pern-Fors. After exchanging 1 set each, John McEnroe was leading 2-1 in the third set when he received his first code violation for unsportsmanlike conduct after intimidating a lineswoman. Typical John McEnroe. The second and third violations came in the fourth set when he was down a break at 2-4. The second one was for racket abuse and the third one was for verbal abuse. Out goes John McEnroe. This brings me to what is happening now, which is the legacy of the big three, which is Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic. Their brutal domination has basically ensured, like I said earlier, that 20 titles to Federer, 19 to Rafa, 17 to Djokovic, and they have kept their grip very, very tight over the major titles in the tennis world over the last couple of years. What is going to happen now? Roger Federer has not played in the US Open. He's opted out. He won't play in any of the tournament through this year because he's recovering from surgery. Rafa opted out for personal reasons also, didn't want to travel during these COVID times, which left Djoko in the US Open. He's also out. But the legacy of the big three is what we are going to talk about. So now that Djokovic is out of the US Open, it has opened the doors for younger players, and Alexander Zverev is one of them. And if we talk about, since Stan Wawrinka's 2016 US Open triumph, has a Grand Slam been won by someone other than the big three, winners of the last 13 major titles. So out of the last 13 major titles, they've all gone to the big three. So with Djokovic out, Alexander Zverev has his eyes on the title. Dominic Thiem, who, if you remember, challenged, really pushed in the Wimbledon final, he has an excellent chance of winning, and he's also a major threat. And overall, it opens up the game for the youngsters to come in and make a name for themselves and dominate. Of course, these three will be back next year, and they're not going to leave in a hurry. But can some of the younger players now break in and win the major titles? That is the question. So, a couple of points that I would like to raise here. One is that Novak's apology was genuine and heartfelt. It wasn't just an iffy apology that, okay, so I got it wrong and what's the big deal happening? No, he genuinely apologized, and what he later put on Instagram was a genuine, heartfelt apology, and there were no riders at all. Second point, he defended the lineswoman who was getting trolled for exaggerating the injury, because if you see the footage, she slumps down, and so some of these issues were raised that did she get so badly hit that she had to slump down, and did that really cost Novak Djokovic very badly? But Novak is saying it is not her fault. She wasn't at fault at all. She has done nothing wrong. Let her be. It was my fault. So a great player, a superstar of tennis, is being very open enough in rendering a genuine apology, which is great to see. And that sets up a benchmark for sportsmanship, which may not be very, very evident all the time, while Roger Federer is easily a great. But some of his critics have always said that when he loses, it's always about himself and there is hardly any praise about his opponent, which is a point of view. But where Novak Djokovic is concerned, it's the hard-fought warrior who's come and challenged the king and the prince and the superstars like Roger Federer and Rafa, particularly Roger. So could be some bit of a similarity between the kind of image that Bruce Springsteen bought him and the way Novak plays his tennis, that hard grind, the hard climb up. Novak will be back. We'll have to watch and see now how he takes on the rest.